Madame Lagarde, many people are a little worried.
Christian, it's impossible to understand you.
We can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh.
People are a little worried about what will happen to them with the digital euro. Can you encourage them? Why is the digital euro good for people like you and me?
I'm very sorry, but we lost half of your question. So I know it relates to the euro, and I know that it's about you and me, but anything else was lost in the conversation. So do you mind restating your question? We couldn't hear it.
Yes, I tried. Many people are a little worried about what will happen to them with the digital euro. Can you encourage them? Why is the digital euro good for people like you and me?
Thank you. You know, the word I was missing in your question was digital, which is clearly the critical one. Let me just preface what I will say now with the fact that if and when we have a digital euro, we will nonetheless always have banknotes. So I don't think that anybody should think in terms of banknotes and coins as opposed to and in substitution of digital euro. So the two will coexist and will continue to do so if and when there is a digital euro. And I just want to remind you where we are in that process. We have launched a consultation throughout Europe on the 12th of October, which expired on the 12th of January, to which we had over 8,000 responses by multiple respondents, which have all addressed at least two of the questions that were included in the questionnaire. So we have received a mine of information, which we are currently processing, which will give rise to a report that will be shared, that will be made public and available, because we want that process to be totally transparent. My colleague on the board, Fabio Panetta, has reported to the European Parliament on that particular matter, and he will report again, I'm sure, when we have conclusions from that report. And it is only in the spring, probably in April, that we will determine whether or not we decide to go ahead with the work that will need to be done. But there are lots of questions that have not been resolved and that will, when they are resolved, determine the shape, the technology support, the process by which the digital euro will be created. And I want to downplay any expectations that it is about to come. It will take a number of years. It is a complicated issue. It's one that has to be resolved without disrupting the current financial scene, nor jeopardizing the monetary policy transmission that we have currently. So, and we have not yet either decided what the technology backbone would be, ideally, in order to support that digital euro. But I would simply observe, in response to your question, that a digital currency, where it has been piloted, and there is only one which is clearly now launched in a very small country, but it is piloted on a fairly large scale in China, is of use and of service to all citizens. So it is not something that is good for the elite, or is good for the young, or is good for some versus others. If it is well done and if it is well implemented, it would be of service to all citizens. But clearly we are not there. There are lots of issues that need to be addressed. We need to make sure that that is compatible with monetary policy, with sovereignty, with proper transmission of monetary policy. So it's clearly a project that is fascinating for some, that corresponds to a demand from citizens. I'll remind you that there are several countries, including, for instance, Sweden, outside the euro area, granted, or the Netherlands, where the use of tangible currency is declining at a very, very fast pace. And that has been, as so many other things, that has been accelerated by the pandemic.
Thank you. The next question goes to Carolyn Lock of Bloomberg News. Carolyn, please.
Hi, thank you very much. President Lagarde, as you mentioned in your introductory statement just now, the latest bank lending survey suggested that credit standards tightened for loans to enterprises and households. Now, we're seeing that we have these extended lockdowns and a very slow start to vaccinations. And a key risk for the euro area is actually a wave of defaults hitting banks. So how is the ECB thinking about this with regard to the effectiveness of its TLTRO program, given that these are supposed to encourage banks to lend, and at the same time that lending can expose them to bigger risks? And secondly, the account from your last meeting also showed that some reservations were expressed about how much the TLTRO borrowing allowance should be increased. So can you give us an idea of what the Governing Council's latest thinking is on what limitations exist as to how much policy